Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
Your burger is served, and this is our finest Pepsi Zero Sugar. Its sweet profile perfectly balances the savory notes of your burger.
That is one perfect combination. Burgers deserve Pepsi.
This is Cop Talk, talking crime, cases, and backing the blue. Now, here are your hosts, Captain Ed Mehmet and Detective Kevin Schroeder.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. I'm Kevin Schroeder, your host. I'm here with my co-host, the good captain.
Hello, WABC listeners and YouTube viewers. Today we have another distinguished guest who we know from the police department and who now is living in Florida and came back to help us out.
All right.
So today's guest is Bob Ganley. Bob is retired from the NYPD as a rank of sergeant. He's also the vice president for many years for the SBA, the Sergeant Benevolent Association.
I was for 17 years.
And also a deputy commissioner with the NYPD.
I was.
And soon hope to come back as the police commissioner.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Bob, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, and hello to everybody out there that's listening. I appreciate the time. And, of course, it's always good to see two good friends.
So just let's tell our listeners your early background, you know, where you grew up, when you came on the job.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Nassau County in Long Island, and it was always a dream of mine to be a police officer. And 1982, I was lucky enough to get called by the transit police. So I worked in the transit police from 92 until merger. I'm sorry, from 82 until merger. And those times I worked in various commands of patrol and anti-crime. In 1988, I got promoted to sergeant. And I worked in some other patrol commands and then was transferred to the Brooklyn DA squad, which was a great learning experience for me. In all those times as a police officer, I got involved with the PBA, so I had a lot of experience in health benefits and contract negotiations. And then in 1990, I ran for SBA president of the transit police, and I was successful in that election. And then, again, more experience in the health and welfare side, as well as contract negotiations. And I was... And then the merge came. And then I went to Intel. And then I went back to the DA squad. And then I went back to Intel. And then from Intel, I became a delegate. And we saw what was going on at the SBA at the time, how the benefits were eroding. And myself and another a slate of officers decided to run for office, and we were successful. So I held the position as a vice president from 2002 to 2022.
Oh, wow. Nice run.
Yeah, it was great. We won every election. Was never close. The work that we did was really outstanding, and it was really a privilege for me to sit in that position and represent the sergeants of the NYPD.
You know, I'm surprised. I didn't know you came from transit. I thought you were always in the PD.
No, 1982, they called me. Back then, in the 80s, I was taking all the tests. I took a test in Houston. I took a test in Nassau, Suffolk, NYPD. At that time, I believe NYPD and housing were off the same list. And there was a separate test for the transit police. I knew guys that did that. I took that test, and I went to the first job that called me. And for me, it was the right fit at the right time. And when you look back from, now to then, I'm glad I did it because I learned so much and I experienced so much.
Did you have any contact with our illustrious mayor when he was there?
I knew the mayor when he was there. We would speak. We were friendly. I'd consider us friends.
You know, from transit?
Yeah. I remember going into one of the commands in Brooklyn. We were running for office, and I believe the mayor at the time was the 1st platoon commander. I think it was the 8-3 maybe. I don't really remember. And we walked into campaign, and the mayor was there, and he said, "Don't worry, I got the place for you. You guys are okay in this command." So I always enjoyed his company. Now we're just on different sides on some issues. So as they said in Godfather 1, business, it's not personal.
Was he as vocal in transit as he was in the police department?
He was always vocal and an advocate for black and brown police officers.
Okay. Now, when did you become a deputy commissioner? At what point?
So when I retired in 2017, if I can go back, I did 2002 to 2017. Then I reached mandatory retirement age. And I was out about 3-4 months, maybe, and I got a call, and the police commissioner asked me if I was interested in coming back. And I said, as what? And he says, as deputy commissioner. And I said, doing what? He said, it's the perfect fit for you. It's employee relations. It's a perfect fit. I'd like to have you back. The deputy commissioner that's there is retiring, leaving. And he said, this is a perfect fit for you. So I said, I'm in. So he said, no, you got to go home and think about it. I said, no, I don't think about it. You know, you're the police commissioner. You asked me. There are times where you just can't say no. This is one of those times. So I'm in. So in November of that year, I was sworn in as a deputy commissioner, and I stayed there till 2022, which I will say that it was a perfect fit because I had all the background on contracts. I had all the background on health benefits, you know, how to handle issues, the fraternal groups, line of duty deaths, benefits. So yeah, it was just a perfect fit for me, and it was a great opportunity for me, and I'm so happy I took it.
Who was the commissioner at the time?
The police commissioner at that time was Police Commissioner O'Neill, and then when he retired, Police Commissioner Shea asked me to stay on as well.
Oh, it's O'Neill that brought you on. Okay, O'Neill brought you on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you tell our audience what the job entailed?
Yeah, well, under my umbrella was the ceremonial unit. There was the fraternal organizations, and family assistance was also under my, span of control, which are all very important. We try to work on morale, suicide issues that were really hitting the department bad back then. And we also, it was good because most of the police union hierarchy knew me from my past position. So they would come to me, and then I try to work through their problems with the other executives in the police department because they had somebody that they could walk in and talk to. I always had an open door policy. Just come on in. And all the guys knew me and the gals that were. So it was a good fit.
Yeah.
And then you had to deal with the unions.
But you know what? That was the good thing about when the police commissioner said it was a perfect fit, because I knew both sides now. I knew the union side and I knew the management side. So somewhere there's a middle, right? So whenever you negotiate, neither side is happy, right? There's always a give and take, and I was able to forge those negotiations and move them forward.
You know, Bob, you said mandatory retirement, like 63, correct?
Right. Yeah, well, you have to be out before your 63rd birthday.
Believe that they should raise that to maybe 65, 70?
Well, if we were to mirror the fire department, they are at 65.
Right.
Corrections, there's no mandatory retirement. Mm-hmm. So what do I think 65 would be fair? I think for executives, I think they would like to see it raised to 65. But for the people that are just under them, they don't want to see it raised to 65 because then it lessens their spots open to get them promoted to either a 2-star, 1-star chief, 3-star chief, and things like that.
Yeah.
So everything falls from the top, right?
Yeah. It was just because there's such an issue, as you know, throughout the country in regards to, retention and recruitment. That could be one option if they're looking to keep some guys.
Well, there's no doubt about it. You guys remember the days when we took the test. There were 40,000 guys and gals going for the test.
Right.
Now you're in a swimming pool with a net hoping to get a few people to come take your test. I mean, it's really, times have changed. It certainly doesn't help recruitment when you see what's going on in the city right now.
Right. True.
It's a difficult time. It's a difficult time to be a police officer now. You're under the constant public eye.
Yeah. No, it's definitely different. I mean, my class, we had 2,500 guys. I'm sure you the same.
It was big.
Captain the same. Well, maybe back. Was it?
No, mine wasn't that big. It was only about 200. They didn't have any money, so they said.
Yeah, well, Eddie was in the class with Teddy Roosevelt.
I was going to say, yeah,
I was
exactly.
in the first class of 1959, February.
59, that's it.
59, there was about 200 of us, and it was delayed. The appointments were delayed because the city said they didn't have enough money.
Well, I'm happy to say in 1959 I was alive, so
he was on the protection detail with Lincoln, I think, right?
the security detail.
Security, that didn't go too well. I should have mentioned someone else.
When I would speak with new recruits at the academy, I would go before them and I would tell them, I said, I'm on my 38th year on the job. Anybody here 38 years old? Nothing. Anybody's parents 38 years old.
Exactly.
You got a couple of hands. So I would just tell them, I'd say, listen, somebody out there is going to be doing what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. When you get the opportunity, take it. Don't regret things because you wasted your talent. Everybody in this room has talent. Mm-hmm. Not every job requires you to raise your right hand and take an oath. This job does. Take advantage of it.
It's true.
Meta AI is the personal AI that's tailored to you, now with its very own app. It's built to get to know you, offering helpful answers and inspiration. Looking for something to add to your bucket list? Meta AI goes beyond traveling the world. It remembers you're a basketball fanatic and suggests you attend one of the playoff games. Just start typing or speaking to get the answers you need, wherever and whenever, because Meta AI is your personal AI. Download the Meta AI app, now available on the Apple App Store and Google Play.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
When I came on, there was such a different job. I mean, I saw so many dramatic changes. We didn't have any overtime.
Yeah.
If you had to go to court on your day off, you were stuck. And at the commanding officer's discretion, he would give you back the time, maybe,
Yeah.
And there was a 48-hour work week. And I think the starting salary was under $5,000 a year. But the job was a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. We were cops. We acted like cops. We were treated respectfully. It was just a wonderful job. I loved it.
Listen, all of us know that it's the greatest fraternity sorority in the world, right?
Oh, yeah.
Once you come on, you make friends for life. I mean, we know each other now probably 30 years, right? Maybe more. You can pick up a phone, you pick it up from where you left off, whether it's 30 years ago or 3 days ago. Yeah. That's what it all means. It's not, and I always said this, being a police officer isn't something that you do. It's something that you are. Right. And you really can't change that. It's in your DNA.
Right. It's the greatest show on earth.
The greatest show on earth. There's no doubt about it.
Bob, do you know how many sergeants there are today in
I think when I left, there was maybe 4,500 around that
Active.
number. Active. Mhm.
And I think they're short today. I think,
Everybody's short.
Yeah. but I
Right.
mean,
If you
they're
look
really
at the
short.
head count,
Yeah.
you'll see that from cop
Right. Right.
to captain, probably short. Some
Right.
people would think we're top heavy, but
Yeah. I think there's a sergeant's test coming up, and they're like really, really short. Not like you said, they're short everywhere, but I know the sergeant rank, I think, is one of the
well,
ranks
you
that's
know,
very short.
to be being a sergeant is probably the toughest rank in the police department, I think. You take your test, you get promoted. You get to your command. You still have the mindset of a cop, not as a boss yet, right? So the cops don't really trust you. The lieutenant doesn't really trust you because you're a new sergeant. And the captain wants you to know everything. So it takes a while to adjust to that thing because you're the nicest guy in the world until you deny that first 28. And then probably the most hated guy, right? So it's a difficult transition, but once you make that transition and you settle in and you get it, it's really a rewarding rank.
Yeah.
Well, in my time, when you were a sergeant, one of your duties was to monitor the known gamblers. Gambling was a big thing. KGs, right? And each sergeant was assigned a group of known gamblers. And it so happened that I was assigned the guy I grew up with.
Wow.
And I said, oh, my God, what do I do now? So I went to see the commanding officer of the precinct. At the time, it was a 6-7 precinct in Brooklyn. And I said to him, I said, Captain, I can't supervise this guy. I grew up with the guy. So he said, all right, we'll give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
He was pretty good about it. But that's how the job was at the time. There were so many silly things we had to do,
Yeah, but that's a sign of the times, right?
Yeah.
The KGs were bad guys.
Right. And then nobody enforces that anymore.
No.
So that's one of the changes that took place.
Right.
So, Bob, we all want to talk about Medicare.
Right.
So, why don't you inform our listeners? You want to go, Cap? Question?
Yeah, as you know, Bob, you're involved very much. The city tries to force the, managed care program down the throats of the retirees. There are 250,000 retirees from the city, and we all have the city insurance that we carried over into retirement, as well as Medicare. And the city, to save money, wants to go into managed care, and there's a big, big push against it. And you're involved now, which I just recently learned. And can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for giving me that opportunity. That's a really important issue before us all. So Medicare was established in 1967, I believe, by President Johnson. I think, Ed, you voted for him twice, right? Didn't you? Once, at least, I think.
I don't remember. No, I voted for the Republican. Whoever the Republican was, I voted for.
And city employees for years enjoyed city Medicare-eligible retirees. That's who we're talking about. And Medicare-eligible retirees are members that are 65 years plus. They are anybody that's deemed disabled by Social Security. That's the group of people we're talking about. And that, as you said, Ed, encompasses about 250,000 people. We were always told that you'd have traditional Medicare on the left side, which you pay for. You pay for it either through your Social Security check, or if you're not receiving Social Security, you can pay monthly by credit card, check, whatever you want to do. And Medicare pays 80% of your bills. GHI Senior Care, which would be your Medigap plan or a supplemental plan, pays the remaining 20%. That's the way it's always been for 60 years, 55 years, around there. So what happened some years back under Mayor de Blasio, they made a deal with the Municipal Labor Committee, which is all the unions that the city deals with on health care benefits. It's 102 unions in that. They were looking to save money. So what did they do? They picked off the retirees. They said, we'll change your traditional Medicare into a Medicare Advantage plan. And Aetna is going to run that program for us. They'll be the vendor. And with traditional Medicare, 99% of the doctors accept traditional Medicare. No Medicare Advantage plan can say that. Not one. I really believe, and the organization I believe, and Eddie believes, and probably you'll believe this too, is that when, excuse me, when you have a medical issue and you go to your doctor, you and the doctor should be discussing your medical diagnosis, your prognosis, and what kind of medical care you should have. So the doctor says you need this test and you have traditional Medicare, you go get that test. You need physical therapy, you go get that physical therapy. Once a doctor says that, because your medical care should be between you two. If you bring in a for-profit group, which Aetna is, at some point they have to show a return on their investment. They have investors. Where are they making their money? And they're going to make their money off denying test and treatment. That's just the way it goes. Maybe increase copays to people. You see all these commercials on TV, whether it's Joe Namath, Jimmy Walker, whoever, talking about Medicare C plans, which is the Medicare Advantage plan. It's a for-profit company. They're all advertising, all doing these commercials for. So the line, your line of care, certainly as we get older, increases, and you want the best medical care. These doctors that are currently in the Medicare Advantage plan, a lot of them now are dropping out. So you'll have less doctors being able to see you and be able to treat you. In addition to that, a lot of Medicare Advantage plans will say, well, you know, we have a network of, we'll throw an arbitrary number out there, 250,000 doctors in our network. But if Kevin Schroeder is a doctor and he has an office in Manhattan and he has an office in Staten Island and he has an office in Queens and he has an office in the Bronx, they count that as 4 doctors. That's not right. That should be 1 doctor taking the plan. So you've inflated the amount of providers you really do have. So with the organization that I'm the vice president of, which is the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees, I got involved in that about 2 years ago. They asked me to come on. I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to. I'm really pretty newly retired. But I said, okay, let me come on because I believe in the mission. I really believe what we're doing. So we sued the city on 3 different times, 3 different cases, and each time we sue them, we are successful. The latest case is what we call the Benkowski case, which is Robert Benkowski was a firefighter that has a serious kidney disease. His I forget the name of it, but his kidney will grow tumors, and then it affects everything else in his body. So when they first informed us they were going into this Medicare Advantage plan, and there was an opportunity to opt out of your traditional Medicare and go into this plan because the city's required by law to give you free coverage. If you look at the city administrative code, it's 12-126, says the city will provide premium-free health insurance for employees, retirees, and their dependents. That's codified into law. So Mr. Benkowski called Aetna because they were doing their rollout. And he says, listen, I'm on the list for a kidney transplant. Do I need a pre-authorization? So they said, we don't know. And he's like, what do you mean you don't know? I'm supposed to be going into this plan in 2 months. If I need a pre-auth and they call me and I don't have the pre-authorization, I'm going to go back on the bottom of the list. And the list is 5 years. That's what they tell you. It's probably closer to 7 to 9 in 5 years. So the organization got together, and it's a grassroots organization. And like I said, sued the city. Successful in New York Supreme, successful in the appellate division, and most recently it was heard at the Court of Appeals level, and we're waiting a decision. Now, when I spoke earlier about the 12-126, it was the city has to provide these benefits up to and including the HIP, what we call the HIP rate. That's the number the city pays for health insurance, because HIP was the only free health insurance plan, am I right?
Yes.
Up till about 1982. Anything else you had to pay a premium for. So what happened was the MLC and the union said, listen, we want the opportunity to have another free plan. So they had GHI come in. So GHI, the stabilization fund was created to pay the difference. If the HIP rate was here and the GHI rate was higher, they would take money out of the stabilization fund to even that out. Okay. If it was lower, there was no cost, and monies would stay in the stabilization fund. Time goes on, the stabilization fund becomes really solvent. I mean, there's just money in there. There's millions and millions and millions of dollars in there. So it slowly started draining the stabilization fund, and draining because the purpose of the fund is for health benefits for employees. So you remember the PICA plan came out in about 85 or 86. Remember that? You got a card that said PICA. It was psychotropics, injectables, chemos, asthma. Those drugs PICA paid for. The welfare funds didn't pay for those. And, of course, the funds started to dwindle because those are expensive drugs. And then, some point down the line, the PICA plan, they noticed it was draining the stabilization fund, as I said. So they said, all right, well, the unions have to now, welfare funds have to pick up the psychotropics and the asthma drugs. Stabilization fund will pay for the injectables and the chemotherapy. Fair enough. Now comes 2016, 18, and the MLC comes up with another great idea of, we need collective bargaining raises. We have to get increases. How are we going to do that? So they saw the money in the stabilization fund. And they went to the city and said, because that fund can be drained by the MLC and the mayor. Well, how about we take money out of that fund to fund our collective bargaining raises? And then what we'll do is we'll change the retirees from traditional Medicare into this MA plan, and they'll save a whopping $200 a month per member, per Medicare eligible retiree. That equates to less than 0.5% of the total city budget. It's really not right. And if you recall, when Mayor Adams was the candidate, he called it a bait and switch tactic and that he wouldn't do it.
Right.
And now Mayor Adams is on the other side of the fence. Once he got elected, he changed his tune.
Wasn't the UFT involved in that?
Well, so out of the MLC, the leadership of the MLC at the time was Harry Nespoli from Sanitation Officers, Henry Garrido of DC 37, and Michael Mulgrew from the UFT. In the MLC, it's a democracy to an extent. like I said, it's comprised of 102 unions. They all have representatives there. And everybody has a vote. But it's a weighted vote. It depends on the amount of your membership on how many votes you carry. So if the UFT and DC 37 believe in this mission, all other 100 unions could vote against it, the motion will pass.
But then the UFT withdrew, right?
The UFT, surprisingly, after many, many months of going out and speaking with their members as well as their retirees and hitting retiree chapters in Florida and Arizona and Tennessee and North Carolina, they had a retiree election. And the unity slate of the UFT, which usually was a hand-picked slate of officers, they were all wiped out in an election. And the sergeant group came up, we don't want to do this, we don't like this Medicare Advantage plan. They wiped them all out. At that point, the leadership of the UFT probably said, we may be in a little bit of trouble here. This is a real issue. So now I'm pulling back my support. Yes, he pulls back his support, but he doesn't support our mission, which is a paper tiger at this point. Pull back your support, but you don't do anything to help the cause. You're really not helping.
And now the case now is before the New York State Court of Appeals.
Correct.
Right? Is it the entire case or only a portion of the case?
It's just what we would call the Benkowski case. There's three cases. The one was the Campion case. The Campion case is called that because the suit was against Renee Campion, who is the Commissioner of Labor Relations for the city. What they wanted to do was change the statute of 12-126, which I explained earlier, and the court found in favor of us. One in Supreme, one in the Appellate Division, one in the Court of Appeals.
Now, what happens if the case is lost? The case is lost at the Court of Appeals.
Well, if we lose that case in the Court of Appeals, it will give the mayor the right to force us all into the Medicare Advantage plan because it is a free plan. Now, if you wanted to, you could stay in traditional Medicare, but you would not get reimbursed for your traditional Medicare, and you would have to pay for a supplemental plan. Now, remember, 2/3 of city employees that are on Medicare have a pension of less than $35,000. A third have a pension of $12,000 or less. So to put that burden on them is not fair. You picked off people that don't even have representation. Here's what unions can negotiate: wages, hours, working conditions. You retired?
Yes.
You have any wages?
My pension.
No. You have wages?
No.
Working conditions?
No. Well, you know what's
interesting? Hours? No.
Can you
Well,
vote?
what's most interesting is all of a sudden, other than Curtis Lewa, who's been on this for quite a while, the Democrat who are running for the primary, now they're in favor of this plan. I don't think they even know what it's all about. They're stumbling over each other to say, oh, yeah, they're in favor of it.
There are a number of candidates.
I'm sorry, not in favor of it.
No,
favor of
that's
wiping it
support.
out.
Right. So there are a number of candidates that have expressed their support for it. Certainly Curtis is one of them. Jim Walden is another one.
Yep.
Most recently, Andrew Cuomo expressed his support for it.
Well, Scott Stringer.
Michael Blake, Scott Stringer, and Brad Lander.
Right.
But there's more you can do. You know, we're pushing legislation in the state too. So you have to throw your weight behind that as well.
Well, is the the group you belong to and I belong to, are they supporting any particular candidate at this time?
No, it's a little early right now. We'd like to see who comes out of the Democratic primary. You know, if anybody wants to go onto the website, they can go on and look at it and check it all out. It's www.nycretirees.org. or you can go onto our Facebook page, which has a lot of videos there that are very, very informative. Like I said, the president is Marianne Pizzatola, who is a retired EMS worker who is really well-schooled on this and really knows a lot more than I do, and I am fortunate that I get to learn a lot from her every day.
So, Bob, how can our listeners get a hold of you if they wanted more information, basically based on what you just said, that website?
Yeah, they can go onto the website, like I said, nycretirees.org. You can subscribe to get all our emails. There's a donation portal on there. You can log in, create an account, and you can email us right off that website, and I'll certainly respond.
Is there do you have a figure on how many live in the city that can vote? Of the 250,000, that's a huge number.
Well, I will say this: I don't have the number in front of me right now, but this is why candidates are seeking the support of the organization. They're older, they vote, and they make donations. So you're right. That is a big block of people.
Well, if half live in the city, that's a huge number, and they vote for one candidate.
Well, just look how many people turned out last mayoral election. So that block is a big block of people.
So, Bob, if you were to become the police commissioner tomorrow, New York City police commissioner, what would be your first day of business? What would be your first change?
I would resign.
Right before you resigned.
Yeah, right before.
There was a presidential candidate who said that. Who was that?
Yeah.
No, that's a
I know
job.
it's not a job you want, but-
That's a job that. Listen, I would be honored to be offered it, but I would respectfully decline.
Yeah.
Well, you'll certainly look the part. You look the part of a classic Irish police commissioner.
You do.
Well, this is how long Eddie knows me. He knew me when my face was white and my hair was red.
Now, all right. Well, what about in regards to retention and recruitment? What would be your recommendation for the NYPD? Actually, law enforcement throughout the country, but NYPD.
Well, the biggest recruitment problem and retention problem for NYPD is salary, right? You look at surrounding areas, everybody pays more. They don't work as much as we do. Anytime you put on a uniform, you're a target these days. But if you're compensated for it, it's a little easier to take. That's why we lose all our guys to Nassau, to Suffolk, to MTA police, state police, Florida. People want a different quality of life. It's very difficult to be a police officer here. But if you raise that salary, and if we go back to where my union hat and my management hat, I understand that. If you raise it for police, everybody else can knock on the city's door and say, you got to raise us too, because that's been the standard for forever.
Bob, do you think the our government is doing the right thing in regards to the 9/11 program? I mean, give them the funding they need and support.
It's a shame that we have to go there every few years to fight for it.
Yep, exactly.
As you both know, right after 9/11, and I said this to legislators in Congress, you could find any number of politicians wanting to take a picture at Ground Zero with a uniformed cop. And once the cleanup happened, you couldn't find them again. And they turned their back.
Very true.
And I will say this, that when I was lobbying for that bill for many years, it's a shame it took that long to do it. It really is. But I would sit in the legislator's office and say, it's New York today. Maybe it's Ohio tomorrow.
True.
Maybe it's Virginia tomorrow. Maybe it's Arizona tomorrow. And if you don't think the NYPD is coming to your state, if that happens, you're out of your mind. Because we go where there's trouble. And we can help. So for you to say no, that this isn't right, not that it's not right, that we don't have the money for it, you have to find the money.
Right.
And they eventually do, but you shouldn't have to go hat in hand for a program like that.
Shouldn't have to, beg for it. It should just be automatic.
Yeah,
above
no
and
doubt.
beyond.
It took a while even for the state benefits to kick in too.
Yeah, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Cap?
Bob is a classic product of the New York City Police Department.
Oh, thank you.
And I would love to see him come back in top position.
We should be calling him commissioner, not sergeant.
Bob is fine.
Bob's fine.
Nobody gets wrapped up in titles.
Well respected in the job, did a great job. I think he'll do a good job with the Medicare Aetna controversy.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing on my plate right now is what I'm really focused on. It takes up a good portion of my day, and as I said to the captain a little earlier, I'm the highest unpaid consultant around. So if you need anything, pick up the phone.
Thank you. Have you been going around speaking? Have you been offered to go and speak to the police unions or different police departments? Or
I speak to them offhand, or guys call me or gals call me. What do I think about this? How do I do my Medicare? How do I do my Medicare reimbursement? I'm getting finalized. What do you think about a pension loan? Should I leave an option? So I still got my hand in that. But these are more people that know me or people that tell people, listen, call him. He can really help you try to figure something out.
Any last words, Cap?
No, I think Bob said it all. And we're very pleased to have you.
Well, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it up here.
Enjoy
it's good
Florida.
To see you guys. Yeah, thank you.
Except in the summertime.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's hurricane season, so I don't get as much sun.
It's hurricane.
Well, here we are. Thanks, Bob, for coming up and coming into the studio today. Bob, retired sergeant and commissioner and legend. So,
all right.
You do God's work, Bob. Keep it up.
Vice President of the Sergeant Benevolent Association.
That's what I just said. Oh, no, I didn't say that. You're right. Vice President. I said that earlier. Thanks, Cap. That's why you're the captain. I'm only a detective.
Yeah.
But, Bob, thank you for coming.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone wants to get in touch with Bob, you can listen to our podcast, and his information will be up on our website as well. And if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to Cop Talk at WABC Cop Talk. That's at Cop Talk WABC. Until next time, God bless you, God bless America, God bless law enforcement throughout the world, and also God bless our U.S. military.
And you could view the well-dressed Robert Ganley on YouTube.
Exactly.
Until next time, thank you.